This is about an approach to a variety of situations, quite likely to be big projects where there may well be a lot of change or a lot of technical detail. There's probably a lot going on, and how one might approach that in a way that is quite common across different situations. So it's a way of orientating oneself to not get overwhelmed. It's a way of understanding the environment. It's a way of keeping track of what the journey is and being able to build up the skills for that. The way I've approached this is a mix of clean language coaching, systems thinking, and project management. So looking at the purple box is talking about managing yourself, and then also the system and navigating the journey. In the blue area, on the top left of the blue, is oneself. So part of one's attention may be about making sure that one is free from distractions, one is not overwhelmed, one is not stressed. So self-coaching to a certain extent. The system area is looking at looking at the environment, looking at the various factors, the different stakeholders, different periods of time, and the different situation that's there anyway before one starts off on one's project or one's goal. So understanding the general environment. Then looking at the bottom left of the blue area, it talks about the project or the journey, metaphorically, and that's a structured way of looking at the project. And then there's a content or navigation, a little bit more technical. Perhaps one needs technical skills to work with that. So how does one manage oneself, keep track of what's going on, keep a sense of direction in where the overall project's going, and also keep on top of the technical skills? Well, my approach here is separating those things into 4 different areas: self, system, project, and content. And again, in the purple area, looking at how to deal authentically with those and transparently, being able to show and demonstrate how one is approaching these, understanding where one's getting information, how one's processing information. And a lot of this is making the right sort of conclusions, not making too simple assumptions, not putting a structure where you don't need to have a structure, not but yet being helped out where there's a useful project approach. Situations can be difficult where there are multiple people who want different things, where things change, where there's uncertainty, where one's role changes, one's responsibility changes, or there are conflicts. Perhaps there are unhelpful patterns such as underinvestment in the project or poor communication in general by multiple people. There may be complex technical issues, and that may all combine to make it a difficult environment. Obviously, if things are simpler, then you can simplify this whole method and simply check you're okay. Look at the system. If that's okay, then concentrate on the moving the project forward. So, looking at self, system, project, and content. Starting with self, my approach here is to use clean language to make sure one is happy and stable enough to keep track of the system and project. So basically, if one is overwhelmed, stressed, disorientated, stuck somehow, use clean language coaching and help one get out of that. So in the pinky area on the top right, clean language coaching talks about what would you like to have happen, asks is there anything else or what kind of, to build up a story of what's happening for you. It figures out relationships. And that is like what question may well produce metaphors. It is possible to do clean language coaching on yourself. It's a lot easier if somebody else can facilitate one. Clean language coaching helps the client, or perhaps you and yourself in this case, to keep track of desired outcomes. Use metaphors and develop metaphors to that are brought up by the client, and they fit the situation because of the way clean language works and the way people work. We often use metaphors. Clean language coaching thinks about or focuses on the elements and the relationships and the system. So how all the different bits of the story fit together, and it can look at the individual bits, it can look at the whole system, and it's a way of bringing this to somebody making sense of the right areas and focusing on either the detail, the high level, or whatever them choosing what area that they should be focusing on. Patterns, if somebody is always taking the first idea or avoiding something, there are certain things that recur, and they may be called patterns, and clean language coaching can keep track of that. Scales, thresholds, boundaries. Sometimes if one says there's too much happening, then that's a scale. It's a scale because there could be too little happening, too much happening. There's a scale there, a range of things. A threshold or boundaries. There's too much happening implies that there is a level where there's not too much happening. That below a threshold things are fine, above a threshold things are not fine. Clean language coaching uses minimal assumptions. Technically, there must be some. I guess there are some assumptions there, but basically, the facilitator is not going to be adding in assumptions that you must have a plan, you must act today, you must take the simplest solution, you must include everybody. You're not imposing how somebody solves a problem, and you're not talking about your own experience. You're letting the client put the elements and the structure together themselves. It's often a systemic view that moves into systemic modelling, or and will understand the feedback and the various things happening when looking at it from that point of view. With clean language or systemic modelling, one uses bottom-up modelling, not taking generalizations, and it also accepts the client information and metaphors literally. Somebody says things are getting on top of them, then you start looking at that metaphor literally, and that gets into the way we experience things. That's getting into the place as if something is literally on top of them. What could be on top of them? It implies it's either if one questions, it might be a cloak that's on top of them, or it could be something heavy that's on top of them. But it implies one checks if that is a problem, but is what they want to have happen. So one asks about it, and one checks out what the goals are, what the desired outcomes are, what are the problems, and what needs to change. While I'm on this area, thanks very much to David Grove, James Lawley, Penny Tompkins, Wendy Sullivan, Judy Rees, Caitlin Walker, and Marion Way for their development of clean language coaching. I've also talked about systems thinking. Here where I guess this is a good point to look into the systems side of of my blue area, looking at how the things around you fit together. So looking at both the white circle and the pink on the bottom right, system thinking talks about a number of different agents. They could be perceivers, literally people, or metaphorically characters in one's story that have a different view. It could be your current self, your past self, etc. And these agents or perceivers are likely to be interconnected, and there's some dynamic, this feedback, and there's a dynamic relationship between them. In systems thinking, one often thinks about causation. You may think about emergent behavior, things that are developing, how the relationships of the systems are changing. There may be small changes that have large effects in systems thinking. One looks at feedbacks, loops, which either amplify things, small changes, or dampen things down. And a lot of this is about the relationships between the different elements, different parts of what's going on. And there may be delays in systems and what happens. So that's a bit of systems thinking. That links quite well with clean language and systemic modelling. The way I'm looking at this, there's the model itself, again, metaphors and patterns and what's happening for the client, what are the different elements, how they combine, what are the sequences. Sequences, it links into time. One can look at things in different elements of time. when look at different spaces as well. Spaces could be literally the CEO's office, or it could be from a when the project is completed, that'll be like what, or kind of going to places in time and space to get a perspective to understand the project from a new angle. A question, it's not a clean question, but when the project's finished, how will you know the project's finished? What will be different? Is a sort of a journey into a different space and time to think about something, to get more information about what's going on. Different perceivers. One could look at a project from a customer point of view, from your point of view, from your future self's point of view, from the self that has just got the promotion point of view, or from the angel or the devil on one's shoulder. There's both metaphorical and practical perceivers can be addressed. So here we've already got you as yourself when you're trying to manage yourself, facilitate yourself, look at the system, take different views of the system, facilitate and getting the information out of the system, and then you can look at almost go to the system, be in the system, and look from a particular place, look from a particular moment in time, look from perceivers, develop metaphors, even get a metaphor for the whole system. And this is a way of separating things out from you. Personally, I find looking at the system means I'm not thinking about is it me, is it something I've done that's causing this. It's looking at the inherent positives or negatives that are going on in the system. Right, so there we've got two broad categories, through areas to look at. Yourself, making sure you're playing your best game, and that you're looking at the system, which is a separate stepping out into what's separate to you and what's going on. So once you get all that, you may find, well, there's you, there's the project manager, the program manager, or if in a different example, it could be the bride, the groom, the different situation. What does the bride want from the wedding? What does the groom want? What do the parents want? What do the people who may be paying for it want? What do the guests want? You could look at things from different angles, and ultimately one can use a project management approach such as Prince2 or Agile to structure all of that, structure the tasks and the projects and the tasks and the work streams, or the budgets and things that need to be managed in order to make particular things happen. One can develop plans, deal with ways of changing things, coming up with an organization structure in order to understand how authority can work and how decisions can be made. So that there is, I guess, does have assumptions. It has a structure where one can impose a project. That's a particular area of this diagram where I am bringing in content and structure and assumptions of how a project should be run. One could choose that. One could choose a different method of bringing that together. Whereas in self and system, you're asking much more open, plain language questions in order to find out what's going on, as opposed to, say, and imposing that the system should work in a certain way. I am not going to talk much more about project management, just so that you have that approach, and to me that's a different gear. Once you're in that, then you are coming up with plans, budgets, testing things in certain ways. And separately, I'm an accountant. One may have other particular technical approaches to things. In my metaphor, the skills of navigation to go on the journey is separate to the listing and managing of tasks to go on a journey. So one can, again, a different gear from in my metaphor, develop the skills and knowledge that is needed for the navigation. So also understanding the system, there's a high-level system view, and to me it's separate to understand all the different systems. Each perceiver, each agent could have particular histories, stories, aspects. You could coach people individually, but to me that's more content, and I'd put it in this section where we're dealing with more detail. It's not the overall view. Not a perfect category distinction, but to me there's a different area here where we're building technical or detailed knowledge of things. Right, so to me there's different perspectives and ways that I will look at I might look at a project. Me bringing my best game to the environment, looking at the general environment, figuring out what I want to do and what the particular journey is, and then the content and navigation involved in that. What I like about this different way of looking at things, I can really understand the environment by asking clean language questions, by asking these coaching questions, and get a sense of lessons that can be learned, things that are happening, making sure that that we do learn from history. There's a phrase, we learn from history that we don't learn from history. Well, mistakes shouldn't be repeated, and coaching and looking at the system can help in that. Then a separate view of pushing the project and understanding and managing that, and then a separate view of managing all that content. So I think this approach can be used for small personal projects, can be looked at group decisions, can we look at general business. There's a particular insurance regulation where I can think about what are the goals, what are the different stakeholders involved, and you could look at it for something like a wedding or different ways. So this is a way of integrating self or general coaching, systems and group approaches to looking at things, project management, and the use of technical content. If you're interested in hearing more, please link with me on. My name is Brian Birch on Facebook or LinkedIn, or join the groups Clean Language Private Discussions in Facebook or Clean Language Facilitators in Business on LinkedIn.